Hi everyone, welcome to our pronunciation video series. My name is Professor Feng and today will be our video lesson 3. And today we're going to be talking about stress. Oh, you're probably saying, wait a minute, our last video was about stress. Wasn't video lesson 2 about stress? And you are right, video lesson 2 was about stress. But today we're going to be talking about a different type of stress. So last time we talked about stressed words that were important, and strongly stressed words that were important. But today we're actually going to be talking about parts of words that are important. So let's look at our schedule for today. First, we're going to talk about stressed syllables in short words. Not very short, maybe 2-syllable words or so. Then we're going to talk about stressed syllables in longer words, which is very important as your English gets to a higher level. And then finally, at the end, I want to give you 2 things you can do to practice, 2 ways that you can practice the things that you've learned. So let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about stressed syllables. I said that to you already, but I want to tell you a short story to show you why this is important. So when I was teaching a beginning level class, I was talking to my students about favorite foods. And I was making a list of everybody's favorite foods. And one student raised his hand and said, "Oh, my favorite food is the avocado." And I said, "Oh, really? The avocado? What food would that be? Can you explain it to me a little bit? I don't think I know this food." And my student said, "You know, the avocado. You know, it's like black and green inside, and you know, you put it in guacamole and oh, avocado." Okay, so the problem that we were having was actually a problem with the stressed syllable. Because in the word avocado, in English, we usually put the stress on the ka or the ca, and he was pronouncing it avocado with stress on the vo. So the part of the word that is the important part is actually an important thing for students to know, and in order to pronounce clearly the words that they are trying to say. So this is something that we're going to work on today. We actually have some rules to help you know which parts of words to have the important part and have the stress. So let's look at 3 words to start us off. If you look over at our words, we've got the word Susan. That's a name. And which part of Susan is the most important? Listen to me pronounce it. Susan, Susan. Which part would you say is important? Yeah, Sue. That's that important part of that word. And we just did this next word, avocado, so you already know what's the important part of that word. Yeah, perfect. Ka, excellent. And then we've got one more word, pronunciation. Okay, this one's longer. Can you hear which part of it is important? Pronunciation, pronunciation. Yeah, good. It should be on the A over here. So as we are learning words in English, we need to know which part of the word is the most important part. Try pronouncing these words after me. Susan. Next one, avocado. Next one, pronunciation. Good. And we already know how to pronounce the stress on that important part. Does anybody remember from our last video how we pronounce stress? If you remember, there's 3 things we do to pronounce stress. Do you remember what those 3 things are? Yeah, that's right. They were high, long, and loud. Let's look at our rule up here. How do you pronounce a stressed syllable? High, long, and loud. Exactly. And this is the same as when we're pronouncing stressed words. For stressed syllables, we do the same thing. We pronounce them a little bit louder, a little bit higher, and a little bit longer. Okay, so let's practice some words and let's see if we can learn some rules that will help us know which part of the word is stressed. So let's take a look at this first group of words. Which syllable is stressed? I'm going to pronounce the word and I want you to decide which part is important. Repeat after me. Table. Which part of that was important? Yeah, it should have been the A. Exactly. All right, let's try the next one. Pencil. Okay, which part was the most important part in that word? Do you know? Excellent, it should have been the pen. You can mark that with a dot over it, or if you prefer to put a little underline, that's fine too. How about the next word? College. should have been the first part there on the ka, college. Okay, what about this other group of 3 words over here? Let's try these. Pronounce after me. Pronounce. Yeah, you should have heard it very strongly over here on nounce. Pronounce. Okay, try the next one. Decide. Good. That should be the second part as well. Okay, how about our last one? Begin. Very nice. That should be on that second part there as well. Okay, so if we look at our words, we notice that these 3 over here are all on the first part. These 3 over here are all on the second part, right? And actually, if we look at them, they're different types of words. Here's our grammar again. Do you know which types of words these 3 are? Table, pencil, college. Those are all what type of word in English grammar? Do you know? Yeah, that's right. They're nouns. They're things, or college could be a place too. What about these ones over here? Pronounce, decide, begin. What are those words? What grammar type of word is that? Those are all verbs. And you notice that they have their stress on the second part. So this actually helps us form a rule. We actually have a rule here that will help us. So let's go ahead and look at it. Here's some rules for syllable stress. Stress the first syllable for what type of word, everybody? Yeah, nouns. Stress the second syllable for verbs. Yeah, you're right. Okay, now this rule I do need to explain a little bit more and talk to you about it because the rule for nouns is an excellent rule. Many 2-syllable nouns, not very, very long nouns, but 2-syllable nouns will follow this rule. So if you look around yourself, you'll see many words that follow this rule, right? Table, window, whiteboard, textbook, cell phone. Many words follow the rule for nouns to be on the first syllable. However, the verb rule is not as good of a rule. It's more like a suggestion or maybe something that will help you sometimes. So we do have many verbs that are on the second syllable. For example, begin, repeat, and those types of words. But actually we have many verbs that are exceptions that don't follow the rule, words like listen or travel. And then of course we have many verbs that are very short. Go, walk, talk. And those ones, you don't have to choose a syllable because they're not long enough to choose a syllable. You have to have a word that's long enough that has 2 parts to even decide which part is the most important part. So, although it's a great rule to think about nouns first syllable, for verbs, just keep it in mind. Sometimes it will help you, but it might not be a perfect rule. Well, no rules are perfect really in pronunciation. We have to be flexible. Okay. So let's try this a little bit. Let's look at some words. And I think you can use the rule and maybe know which part of these words needs to be stressed without me even pronouncing them for you. Look at the first word. Which part of that word do you think should be stressed? Yeah, I would agree. Discuss. Now, why did you decide it needed to be over here on the second part? Yeah, because it's a verb, exactly. Perfect. Pronounce it after me. Pronounce the second part high, long, and loudly. Okay, let's give it a try. Discuss. Very nice. Okay, what about this word? Which part of that word do you think is the most important part? Yeah, I agree. When. And why? Well, because it's a noun, of course. Exactly. Pronounce it after me, everybody. Window. Yeah, very good. Okay, how about the next one? Textbook. Oops, I pronounced it for you. Well, you heard which part would be the most important part. You probably already knew it anyway. Which part should be the most important part? Good. Text. Exactly. And why? Because it's a noun. Okay, why don't you try pronouncing it? Everybody after me. Textbook. Good. Okay, how about this last one? I won't pronounce it for you this time, but you probably know which part should be stressed. Which part should be stressed in this word? Good. The first. teach. And why? Excellent, because it's a noun again. Well, what you notice here is we actually have a lot of nouns and not very many verbs. And that's true because that's true about the rule. If you remember, I said that already about the rule. We have lots and lots of two-syllable nouns with stress on the first. We don't have that many two-syllable verbs that are stressed on the second. Some, but not too many. So now you have one rule that can help you pronounce stress. Okay, now let me show you one more thing that's a little bit difficult for you, probably. A lot of students struggle with the numbers, especially numbers like 13 and 30. So a teacher will say, turn to page 30, and the student goes, is that 1-3 or is that 3-0? Uh-oh, I don't know. Okay, so let me show you with stress how you can know which one you're saying. So take a look. I have a couple examples here. Look at the stress pattern here. Listen to me pronounce the word and decide which part is important. 50. Yeah, that's right, the first part. Okay, good. Listen to the next one. 30. 30. Good. That would be right there. Excellent. Now compare those with the other ones. They will have a different stress pattern. Listen to it. 15. Okay, good. And which part of this word? 13. Very nice. So you can see these two were both on the first. Pronounce after me. 50. 30. Try these ones. 15. 13. So they actually have a different stress pattern, and that will help you know how to pronounce these. So if we want a rule for our numbers, we can think about for numbers that end in which ones would have the first syllable stress. That would be numbers ending in ty. Yeah, 30, 40, 50, 60. All right, now stress the second or the last syllable for 17. For numbers ending in which letters? Teen, yeah. So that would be 13, 14, 15, 17. Those will have stress on the second or on the ending. Okay, are you ready to be tested? All right, let me give you a test. So I'm going to pronounce a word and I want you to say A or B. Are you ready? 30. Yeah, that's B. Good. 40. Yeah, that's B. Perfect. 16. That one's A. Hopefully you got that. 17. Okay, that was A again. Good. How about one more? 90. Okay, good. That one was B. Very nice. So hopefully you can hear the difference and you can pronounce the difference between 13 and 30. Okay, now these words that we've been looking at weren't that long of words. They were actually two-syllable words like table or 30. But what about longer words? Longer words are even more important to know which part is the important part. So let's talk about some longer words. I'm going to give you my favorite rule, probably in all of pronunciation. This is one of my favorite rules because it applies to so many words in English. So let's look at 3 example words and then talk about them. We have the word pronunciation, we have the word education, and we have the word discrimination. Let's see if you know which parts to stress in these words. Pronunciation. Yeah, you should have heard the A. Good. Education. Good. You should have heard the A being strong again. Discrimination. Good. Should have heard it on the A again there. Okay, so we can see we have some strong stress inside of these words. All words, even our very long words, have one important part. And when we're learning English, when we're speaking English, it's important to know which part is that strong part. Which part is that stressed part? So let's see if we can look at more words and think of a rule that will help us. Let's look at these words and see if we can figure out a rule. I'm going to read them. I want you to decide where the important part is. Discussion. Good, right here. Fashion. Good, on fa. Position. Good, that should be on C. Communication. That should be on K, very nice. Mission. Good, that should be on me. And nation. That should be on nay. Okay, so with our other rule, we had a good, clear rule where we said nouns are first, verbs are second. But if we look at our longer words, we don't have a rule like that. We can't just say it's on the first or it's on the second, because look, this one's on the first, this one's on the second. Oh my goodness, this one's on the communicate, the fourth, right? So how can we know which syllable needs to be stressed in these words? Okay, the secret is actually that the ending matters. The letters that you are using on your ending, like ION endings, actually affect where the stress comes in the word. I call them powerful endings or strong endings, like the ending shen, or endings that sound like shen, shus or shul. These are very strong, powerful endings, and they actually form like a magnet, and they pull the stress right next to the ending. Right? So the stress on the word actually moves close to the ending shen in this case. So if we go back to our words again, take a look. Here's our ending shen, and where's the stress? Right before, right? Here's our ending shen again, and here's our stress right before. Ooh, look at a longer word, shen, and the stress is right before. And I always say that I love this rule because it applies to any word with these endings, no matter how long they are. Even a word like discrimination or communication. These words are longer, but they have the same pattern. And we can know where to put the stress in them as soon as we see that ending that we know, right? So this is one rule that can definitely help you. Let's look at our rule. When the word ends in ION, what do we stress? We stress where? The syllable before the ending, okay? So as you're looking at longer words, look for those endings, those shen endings, or something similar like shul or shus. They will all follow that rule. Okay, now I do want to give you a little caution, a be careful statement, which is endings like ing or ed, they don't follow that same rule, okay? For smaller endings that are not powerful, strong endings, they are not going to affect where the stress goes. You actually look at the base form to decide the stress. So like decide, deciding, the stress will be on side, and it's not going to change when you add the ing. Go, going, you don't want to try to put a stress on ing. It will stay in the base form of the verb. Listen, listening. Again, it'll stay, you decide the stress on listen, and you'll keep it. So this rule that we learned for shen is not true for all endings. Small ones like ing, ed, es, er, est, those smaller ones, they don't affect stress in the same way. So be a little careful with that rule. Okay, so today we learned about nouns that are stressed where? On the first, good. And verbs that are often stressed where? On the second, good. And words ending in ION, they are stressed where? Right before the ending, perfect. So what I'd like you to do is practice it a little bit. Take a look. I have a practice number 1 suggestion for you. Why don't you go ahead and write down 10 two-syllable nouns and write down 10 two-syllable verbs. And then mark the stress on them with those dots like I showed you and pronounce them. You can even record them and see how they sound. Okay, another suggestion I have is to make a list of 20 difficult words. Maybe they will end in shen, or maybe they won't. That's okay. What you can actually do is use your dictionary to find the stress, and you can also ask people to pronounce them for you. People love to speak for you. Say, how do you pronounce this word? I'm studying pronunciation, and they will pronounce it for you. And then practice pronouncing those words. Mark the stress on them, record them, and just keep practicing listening to words and noticing which part of that word is important. Thank you for joining me today.